Hey, thank you for joining us for the October 2025. Wow. Job Board Leaders Roundtable. I'm Stephen Rothberg. I'm the founder of College Recruiter Job Search Site. These get-togethers by leaders of job boards, related organizations. We do them on the second Thursday of each month at 11 a.m. US Eastern. Most of the year, that's 4 p.m. British time, UK time. And I see people flowing in, including one person who is driving, and that's a big no-no, Mr. Taylor. Uh,
I'm not.
if you were in
I'm
the
not looking.
UK, if you were in the UK and you were in the left front seat, we'd all be okay. But I think you're in the US, and so therefore we're not okay. Um,
I'm
and
not looking. I'm not looking. I'm,
well,
I'm looking at the road.
good. And usually when people are talking to me, they will also say, I'm not looking. And that's for a different reason. Um, but it's great to see everybody here. These are sponsored by our friends, the Louises at Job Boards Connect, which has their big conference a week from today.
Yes,
Couple of people from College Recruiter are going to be there. Louise, are you sold out yet?
pretty much. We're a handful of seats away.
Oh,
So
that's
yeah,
so awesome. You guys are just crushing it.
it's exciting. We're looking forward to it. It's kind of yeah, it's the big one. It's the annual conference. So there's lots of faces, lots of new faces this year as well, actually.
Yeah.
So that's good.
How many people are you expecting?
Just over 200. So
That's fantastic. And is the breakdown the ones that I was at, it seemed like maybe 60% UK, maybe 30% EU, and then 10% miscellaneous. Is that
yeah,
about right?
Louise was looking at the countries because we like to share that at the beginning of the conference, and I think we're at about 26 countries this year. We do have a lot of people come from the States, but we've got people from Japan this year. Yeah, so from all over actually. So it's truly becoming a global conference. It's really interesting actually how the demographics have spread. So
Yeah. And I love the global aspect because there's so much that is happening, like you say, in Japan
mhm.
that is way better, newer, further ahead than what's happening in the UK, EU, whatever, and vice versa. Um,
And yeah, it's
yeah.
interesting to hear different perspectives, different ways of doing things. We've had people from South Africa before telling us they get 2,000 applications to jobs, and so it's you really do see things from very different angles and different ways of dealing with similar challenges.
Right, right, for sure. Um, Well, why don't I kick us off that the topic for today that had I don't know, probably five, six people over the last few months ask if we could kind of dig into it. And then after I set the topic, OpenAI said, well, if this monthly roundtable is going to be talking about LLMs potentially replacing job boards, then we're going to launch a product that might do exactly that. So the folks at OpenAI obviously care very deeply about what it is that we're talking about here. But in all seriousness, I wanted to get us going. ChatGPT and some of the other ones are definitely gaining a lot of traction. I think that the Googles of the world are still the first place that job seekers go. And then they might go to a job board, an employer career site, whatever. But increasingly, we're seeing more and more traffic, not just College Recruiter, but I think industry wide, coming from the LLMs. And I think it's fair to say that a lot of us feel threatened by the LLMs. Is it a better way of finding jobs? Are they going to put us out of business? Is the revenue model really different? I see Alex Tchaikovsky's on. Alex writes about this stuff a ton. And I just saw your post earlier today, Alex, on Twitter or X, as the cool kids call it. Not an LLM situation, but I wonder if there's something similar there. Alex, maybe if you're okay with it, can I start off by asking you because I think you've written more about the the pros and cons of LLMs for job search than probably anybody else I've seen. Maybe you can just kind of set the stage for what you're thinking about whether LLMs are the future for job search, whether job boards are going to need to incorporate that technology. What are your thoughts?
Hi everyone. It's the first time that my schedule allowed me to join the meeting. Thank you, Stephen, for continuing to send me the invite. Got a call canceled. I was like, okay, let's join. I think there are two sides to this question. So, are job seekers coming from LLMs? Think the consensus right now in the SEO community is that less than 1% of traffic comes from ChatGPT and Claude and Perplexity. And there are some pretty strong numbers from hundreds of thousands of domains shared from different studies from Ahrefs, SEMrush, the major tools. So I trust them. Of course, there are some outliers where someone will say, yeah, I get 10% of my traffic from ChatGPT. Sure. There are also people that optimize for this. So that's possible. So from that perspective, I don't think that job boards care that much. And if you do, that's fairly easy to get to rank into LLMs if this is your game. I don't think it's going to bring you much, but it's another topic. And the second thing about this technology is actually using it on your job board, which I think is a huge opportunity because I wrote about it 2 days ago. Like Indeed is the third biggest consumer of tokens on OpenAI, like the third company that reached 1 trillion tokens, which is it's a huge number. It probably boils down to something between 250,000 and 2 million spent per month, depending on which models, how do you count input and output, so on. And months ago, Oris and I did a webinar on what Indeed does with LLMs. And we made some hypotheses. And now that we see these token prices, we actually think that these hypotheses check out, right? So pretty confident that Indeed runs every job through OpenAI and gets a structured output back out of it. And this is how they build their new taxonomies. This is what they use for the personalized outreach that apparently converts 20% better based on their data. So this type of technology has huge, I would say, use cases for job boards, if you ask me. And Indeed is a great example, but everyone else can do it because the technical barriers are fairly low to enter.
Cool. Anybody want to chime in?
Yeah, I
Alex,
do. I'm going to talk about the Indeed numbers.
The Indeed
So
whisperer, Jim Durbin.
one of the way you can always tell somebody's lying is when they start using statistics without a baseline. So when they've released all this stuff, you notice it's 20% better. 20% better than what? So I'm inside Indeed. I'm training people regularly on those. They're still crappy messages. They're still terrible job descriptions. They're built more for XMLs. And what they're saying is it's better than the average small business person who doesn't know how to write something. It's better than if you go to the templates, it still says, I found your resume on Indeed and think you're the perfect fit for a job. I'm sorry, that's not great messaging. That's what the AIs are telling you from those messaging. So it bothers me when they're making those claims because yeah, job descriptions are terrible. Of course they are. But I don't believe that they're not better than the best out there. It makes me very nervous the way they write those numbers. They're clearly, I think you're the one who showed the massive number of tokens that they're using. It's just one big bit of bland, though. And I think it has a lot more to do with Indeed optimizing it for their algorithm for clicks than actual quality. And it scares me a little bit if we want to all go down that route. So it's not that, yeah, it's better than the average person, but I want to know what they consider average because very rarely I've ever sat down with anyone from Indeed and gone, yeah, they really get recruiting and hiring. That's what scares me about a lot of those numbers. I
I
could be
think the
wrong.
20% are specifically because this is a number from the annual report, the large one that you and Chad and Cheese discussed. I could not recognize you without the hat. It's so weird.
Sorry, I'll go get the hat.
And this was for like email alerts that invite candidates to apply to a job. And the 20% was that they do 20% more hires in the control group that use the personalized outreach messages generated with ChatGPT.
Yeah, but it's part of it is the baseline of just how bad those are. So if you look at how bad a lot of people are at hiring in general. So I mean, if you actually look at the messages, it's the way they wrote it. By the way, their email one's not the same one as their algorithm one. Their email one is based on keyword searches. And what it is, there's the ones that blast out 30 messages to you when you take a job. So I get where they're going with it. I'd just be real nervous about saying it's doing a great job, and Indeed is the one proving it because they're not telling you what their baselines are.
But
I think that's the important part.
Aren't they doing it better than anybody else? And isn't that the point at the moment? In terms of those, specifically those email outreach, but basically,
McDonald's has the best coffee in the world. They're the largest coffee vendor in the world. Would you say they're the best coffee? They're bigger than Starbucks. It's a good coffee. Is that good coffee though? That's the problem when they're comparing it.
So Jim, would you say? I mean, they're job alert emails. Effectively, that's what we used to call them.
Right.
Are you saying to harness AI's potential properly, we need to do so much better than this?
I don't think you have to do very well at all. That's a volume play because they have so many jobs. And I sit and talk to job seekers who are doing this on a regular basis, and you watch what they actually go through. It's purely a matter of large numbers. Like we ran a study once for Indeed and ZipRecruiter, and we found that people who come from ZipRecruiter have a retention rate 9% higher after 90 days than people from Indeed. We spent $600,000 on that nonsense, and all you really had to do was go to Wikipedia and look up the law of large numbers because 90% of our people came from Indeed. So it has to, they have more jobs. So when you get a job with Indeed, you get email alerts based on your keywords every day. They're sending new stuff to you because they want you to come back and apply for the jobs. Sheerly from volume, you're going to get more of those hires. I don't think it's a matter of quality at all. It's just they have all the jobs and they just spam you until if you're looking for a job, you can find one. Doesn't mean it's not effective. Good for them. They're making their money. They're doing it, but we don't have that kind of volume. And I'm pretty sure that I've never seen them do a good job with their outreach. And I mean, I've worked with them for years when they would talk about hyper personalization, and their idea of a study is sending 70 emails out and calling it. They'll go on stage and talk about a 70 email hyper personalization thing. It's wild. I don't think they understand our world. I think they understand how to make a lot of money.
I have a question, Jeff. I'm very much paying attention. I'm just not on camera. Stephen, does it make sense to put a little framework together for this conversation? Because it feels like what we're saying is that ChatGPT or your favorite LLM is additive for the job boards. But should we maybe frame it around like, let's look at some history, like what happened with Facebook or what happened with Google getting into the space? How might OpenAI be getting into?
Yeah, Jeff, absolutely. That was definitely part of my intention was to first sort of start at a bit of a high level. Do we see this as being a threat? Do we see ChatGPT and some of the others as being replacements? Or is it going to be technology that job boards will just absorb, which our industry is really good at that. Jeff Dickey Chasen's the former job board doctor, liked to call job boards amoebas because we would just sort of absorb everything good around us and then make it part of us. And I, I think that there's enough really knowledgeable people on the call that maybe by the end of the hour, there might be some consensus about whether LLMs are more additive or threats to job boards. I personally, I kind of go back and forth, and I think it might depend upon the job board and maybe the industry. One thing about the job board industry is, and I've been in it since 1996, So maybe I'm the oldest person on the call, if not certainly in that group. Um, and one of the benefits of being in any industry for a long period of time is that you see some of the same stuff coming over and over again. The names change, but the plots are kind of the same. It's a little bit like an episode of for those who watched House. The doctor show, you knew that the third diagnosis was always going to be lupus, and the fourth diagnosis was going to cure the patient. Um,
Right.
Stephen,
Yeah.
can I just jump in there? I think
please.
it's really interesting because well, you've been we've all been, we're dinosaurs, you and I. Sorry to put
Yeah.
you in the same category as me, but since I've been running these conferences since I think it was 2012. We ran the first one.
For,
Every year
with Jobgate.
Jobgate, yes,
Yeah.
originally with Jobgate, and every year there's a subject of something that's going to kill the job board, the thing
Yes.
that's the big threat. And so, it was mobile technology, it was programmatic. Every time we run a conference, there's a big subject to explore. And obviously, this year we're talking about AI. There's so much conversation about AI. Alex is joining us, and hello, Bill. We haven't actually met yet, but Bill's coming as well. It is interesting that we have over and over again, we have the conversations about what's going to kill us. Now, that's not to say there isn't something that isn't a serious threat, but we every few years there's another huge subject that rears its head, and we're all still here.
I don't
Yeah,
know if it's
and
going to kill job boards, but I was going to say it might decide a winner because I don't like one thing I saw that happened the other day is OpenAI launched their apps within OpenAI, and Zillow have partnered with them on the housing marketplace side. So I'm sure it won't be long before we see Indeed being the first partner to sit within OpenAI, in which you can access their interface and they can access your chat history within it and pull the data out the back of that. So, like for me, I think everything that we've discussed is right. That it could be additive, it could be a challenge, but I think it's far more likely to help certain players far more than the market as a whole.
so
Yeah, I agree.
So
If I can just talk back to my time at Indeed, so it's clearly a lot's changed in the past couple of years with the partnership with OpenAI. To Louise's point, really, yeah, there have been many things, not just within the job board space, but just within life, right, within business, that have threatened to completely quash lots of businesses in certain sectors. And clearly, we're more concerned with online search, with online recruitment here, but it's clear it's additive in my view. Indeed for 20 years has been running LLMs of data before AI was even in the vernacular, and clearly with generative AI, everything has sort of grown legs somewhat in recent times. It makes it a much more competitive space, I think. And inevitably, any traditional job board that doesn't embrace AI is going to suffer. I think that's pretty clear, and that's the case across the industry. If you're a recruitment consultant, if you're a business, serving recruitment consultancies and in the staffing industry, that'll be very much the case as well. So, I see it as additive, but everyone's got to jump on that train.
yeah.
I have a question.
Well,
So,
if it's okay, I want to circle back to something that Ben said,
sure.
because I think that it also kind of goes to what Jeff was asking, and I thought it was something like really important, and we shouldn't leave it like without discussing it further. I see a lot of similarities. Ben, I think it's kind of like, is this Facebook again? When Facebook came out with, what was it, Be Known and Bewitched or whatever it was, and so many people, like Louise was saying, thought that, well, that's going to be the end of the job board industry because we all go to Facebook so many times a day, especially back then, and it knows all this data about us. And it turns out that Facebook was really, really bad at identifying people who were currently looking for a job, what they were looking for, what they were qualified. Yes, they had a lot of data around us, but The fact that I like to watch videos about cute puppies does not really help Facebook figure out if I'm qualified to be an engineer, which, by the way, I'm
Right.
not. The and so Ben, I'm wondering if you feel like is is ChatGPT knowing your search history, if we can call it search, and that you're looking up recipes for how to make a great pasta sauce and whatever else you might be doing, is that helpful? Is that very different than what Facebook was?
Yeah, so I suppose the question is the comparison Facebook or is the comparison Google,
Yes.
um, in terms of the knowledge that they have at the top?
Or or
They're
or or is it a
gone.
third? Right. So let's frame it that way, right? I'd love to hear your thought. I'd love to contribute as well. And I stopped so I can actually have some connection and share the conversation. Fantastic conversation, by the way. I'd love to hear your thought.
So it's just when the Zillow thing came out, because I know working back in Reeds, they had a quite close collaboration with Rightmove in terms of the marketplaces working in a very similar way. Zillow have basically been able to put their interface or the way they control search, the matching that they're doing, everything that they do sits within that ChatGPT wrapper, but they can pull through the knowledge that people have dropped earlier on in other conversations. So if somebody is uploading their CV because they want to optimize it for a job, or they have talked around planning their next holiday, like their dream holiday in 5 years' time, there's useful information that people are going to be able to grab out. But the point is, it's whereas with Facebook, it was them deciding what was useful. OpenAI are running this in a different way, where they're saying they're just providing access to it, and it's up to the platform to decide what's useful. And I think
Right.
someone like Indeed's got a pretty good track record of working out what's a good signal is and what's a bad signal is.
So can I'd love to challenge something. Like, it kind of feels like I also have a lot of history and been around this business for a long time. And I can remember when AOL ended up with a jobs portal and Monster powered it. And that could have been detrimental to others. I think the more recent changes, though, I think Google got into space. I remember their announcements and them being at HR Tech and different companies saying they were going to change everything. And the reality is Google, through time, has just become a good source for candidates as distribution for the job boards. It's about 25% of the distribution. I think that's become a credible complement. And their idea of being the job board actually is fairly irrelevant. Face tried to be the job board, announced in 23 countries, and then shuttered it in 2022, I think, or maybe the beginning of 23. So that idea of becoming the only job board, I think Facebook is a great example of that failure. I'd like to challenge our first, not thinking in first principles, but our thinking about OpenAI being a job board is it's going to go that way. And I think I could be very different. I did a post on LinkedIn. It's talking about the Sam Altman grill. You can go read it. It's maybe 8 or 10 posts ago. But my feeling is that the combination of them training employees on how to certified in AI and the idea of companies posting jobs there, my worry is much more macro about this. That if they start to have this ability, even if they get the jobs from all the job boards like Indeed, that they're sitting at the decision making of whether that should be a digital employee or a human employee. And I think that they could be in a position to influence that ability to make more people's jobs a digital agent or a series of agents. So I think the second order or third order consequences of OpenAI being in the job space is actually a much bigger challenge for us to think about that could impact all of our jobs. So I'll throw that out there for discussion.
I love that you brought that in, Jeff, because I've been hearing some of the same thing, that this isn't about job advertising. This isn't
The
about
market's too
connecting.
small.
Yeah, that for it to be of interest to an organization that may end up being the most valuable organization in the world a year from now, I could easily see that being the case, that even staffing at $350 billion isn't all that interesting to them. They can make a lot more money by replacing workers with their agentic tech
Right.
than by helping people find jobs. Now, there's nothing saying that they can't do
the big
both.
contract.
Right. One thing that that I should like refer to specifically for anybody who's looking for more information about that is there's a great podcast by Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway called Pivot. And I think they've been saying it's like the 23rd highest ranked podcast in the world. So it's not just me saying that. And they had a discussion about this very issue. And what Scott Galloway was saying is that when Google launched, content creators made a massive mistake in saying, look at all the free traffic we can get. Let's make it easy for Google to crawl our sites, to take our content, because there would be this sort of symbiotic relationship where Google would drive a ton of candidates to us, employers. And so, yeah, we make Google stronger, but Google makes us stronger. And what his argument is that was a massive mistake by the content industry, and that it should not repeat that mistake with the LLMs, that we should be blocking the LLMs from using our content to replace us. Jeff, in your Monster days, right, you had enough industry clout that if Monster had opted out of playing Google's game, I think that would have been detrimental to Google. But the vast majority of job boards are pretty tiny. So if any of us opt out, I think we're just kind of cutting off our own noses to spite our face.
Yeah. It many times in history, it isn't the right thing to opt out. And I think you've got to be in the flow stream of change, and then you've got to figure out where your value is added. I think maybe the one exception for me was I would never put jobs on Indeed. Because I felt that the first day we did that at Monster, we had 1 million jobs at that time, that Indeed would just say they're bigger than Monster if we put our jobs on Indeed for distribution. And after I left, about 2 months really after I left, they started putting all their jobs on Indeed. I think that was not that was an example of something that goes against my recommendation, where I didn't want to get in the flow stream of a competitor. I think in this case, we all need to deeply dive as quickly as possible into every aspect of AI. My view is that the learning that will happen in different dimensions around our world is going to help us continue to lead. I guess that would be my thought statement to put out there.
Yeah. And Matt Farah, thank you for your patience. I know you shared a link, and we talked about it just before we went live. Maybe you can talk about that.
I think it points to what you've been saying, basically, which is surely OpenAI is way too big a business already and has way too big ambitions to be interested in what is to them a relatively small sector. I mean, to us, it's a huge sector, but to them, it isn't. And it's an article by a bunch of you have probably read it anyway, and it was posted by Anita Lettink about a month ago on LinkedIn. And it was just another way of seeing this announcement and saying, maybe what they're not doing is launching a jobs board. Maybe what they're doing is a bit of a Trojan horse where they'll get lots of jobs, information about jobs, so they can understand which of those jobs might be able to be done by AI, which is what OpenAI is interested in. Up until the announcement, all they'd ever been talking about is eliminating jobs and replacing those jobs with AI. So why would they suddenly become a platform which is going to connect humans with jobs? So I thought hers was a really interesting article. It may not necessarily be an accurate vision into the future, but I think what she was doing is saying, just stop a minute, everyone. Stop saying they're about to launch a jobs board, and actually let's have a think about what their real strategy might be, given who they are, how much backing they've got, and what their ambitions are.
From the information I could read, it seemed like OpenAI were going to be focusing on job matching and AI certifications.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's vague, right? Their announcement was quite vague, and I think that's led to a lot of speculation about, okay, this is the first step. What's the second, third, fourth? And in my mind, even more importantly, is the why. It's not so much the what. So yeah, certifications, and you can hire people who are stronger in AI than other people. That's great. That actually sounds pretty similar to me to a lot of the Google certifications. We hired somebody a few years ago to do SEO work. She had a 4-year bachelor's degree. That didn't matter to us. What mattered a heck of a lot more was her 3-month certification from Google. And that's what made her productive, was what she learned through that online certification, not what she probably spent $80,000 on with the university. I think I saw Ethan itching to jump in. You're on mute.
I mean, that's the longest I've ever held my mouth shut.
Yeah, well done, Ethan.
Ethan, I know your wife. And I know that right after this call, she's going to be reaching out to me to ask me how she can make that happen.
I mean, like, air it all out, Steve. Everything. All right. This is a little nuanced as my feedback. I think you should be way more scared than you're talking. And I don't think it's about your businesses. This OpenAI shit. We're not talking about a destination website. You can't compare it to, Jeff, no offense, Monster and AOL, right? Like, it's an operating system.
Yeah.
What you're saying is developing into an operating system. So it's going to go website, browser, already is my browser, 100% nearly, browser, right? And then browser to OS. So you have to be thinking in Microsoft terms. You have to be thinking in Oracle terms. This is not about destinations. Jobs is a function to make some noise. I don't think they're going to hurt any of your businesses, right? By going into the jobs industry. But I can assure you that they've already launched the AI to AI from ChatGPT to Booking.com, Expedia, Figma, and Canva was the other one that they launched. So I can now do an instruction in ChatGPT, a prompt, and it'll go book my flight on my Expedia account that I'm logged into right within my platform. I think jobs is just another one of those key categories that is persistent in information that we access. We consume news, right? We obviously consume travel, autos. Oh, Zillow is on that list.
Mm-hmm.
Auto, real estate, and we're just number 5 or 6. And so what I think you're really seeing in the jobs is, and then what we read about Indeed, their multiple partnerships recently. I think what you should be reading is, most likely, this is a futurist bet. Somebody bet me I'm wrong. From ChatGPT, you will be able to search and apply on Indeed, with whom they have a significant and deep partnership. And that will be built in like Zillow is. Now, real estate is exponentially larger than jobs in terms of the world of money. So, of course, travel, auto, real estate will be there. That's what I think the announcement's about. And you have to start thinking about your businesses as inside out. I just wanted to comment. I was shaking my head about the moating and how that may or may not have been a good idea years ago. And maybe that was true.
Ethan, can I ask a question?
Well, I just let me just finish. They're at 800 million weekly active users in under 3 years, which took Facebook and Google 8 to 10 years to do. Put yourself forward 3 to 5 years. This is the only app that you're using, is a theory that I'm going with. This is the app. Your Zoom call, inside of ChatGPT. That makes it an operating system, not a destination, thinking about things like job boards. That
Ethan,
being said, you should all be way more terrified about that than your jobs, because, I'm not a conspiracy theorist yet, but I'm getting close. Sorry, Matt.
I want to come back to you, and I want to ask this question because this crops up a lot. So Indeed are doing, we understand Indeed are doing some sort of deal with OpenAI, right? So OpenAI will have access to Indeed's jobs. But we keep coming back to this. OpenAI surely has bigger ambitions than just dealing with one organization's jobs, because what about if there are any jobs that aren't on Indeed? I mean, there might be some. So why would they not open it up and say anybody, any jobs platform,
100%
company page that wants to put their jobs, we'd have some sort of, I don't know, XML, we have some sort of tie-in where we can send our jobs to OpenAI, and so it's open all areas. It's open to everyone rather than just.
If they're going down the path of the operating system, not the destination website or even the browser level, like OneUp is operating system. I think you're absolutely right. I think they're never going to build anything but their APIs. You'll use their APIs to process jobs on the back end. That will allow them access if your setting is from private to, for training purposes. If it's for training purposes, then you're in. The first thing, Alex, beat me up anywhere you want. I promise I'm okay with it. The first thing I read in optimizing for SEO or for AIO, right, is you want to be using their API and you want it on the training version, because that's going to give you instant credibility, and presumably they're training the core LLM. So it's the very first thing that I hear you're supposed to do. I am not an AIO or SEO expert. I just fuck with them on LinkedIn.
Hang on, isn't the bigger thing here though that some might say that job boards have lost their relationship with clients due to programmatics, because programmatics have been able to say to clients, like, don't worry about where you're posting, don't worry about the source, we'll deliver the results that you need. So, like, know us, know our name, don't worry about the source at the end of it, we'll look after that. And OpenAI, by having this ecosystem where, of course, anyone can upload information into this, that we open APIs and pushing data in, that the job boards will lose the relationship with the candidates in the same way as they've lost it with programmatics, and therefore candidates will become blind to if it's even Indeed or Zip or Talent or whoever at the end of the actual search one. They go, oh yeah, I went on ChatGPT and hammered in the things, and yeah, it went through.
And we lose the relationship, and Ben, we would lose the relationship with the employers as well.
Yeah. I mean, we're potentially they're potentially moving away already. Yeah, on the candidate side, it just feels like it might be like a similar bridge that gets burnt.
So if I'm a job seeker and I go to ChatGPT or Claude, Gemini, whatever your flavor of the day might be, and I enter, I'm looking for a director of marketing position paying, X dollars, pounds, euros, whatever. Is that a search like you would do on Google? Or is ChatGPT going to return to me a list of jobs to apply to, like a job board would, and then essentially say, upload your resume CV. I'll customize that for you for each of these jobs to make sure that you have the right keywords so that you're ranked well in the ATS, and and just go submit, 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 submit. No, I don't want that one. No, I don't want that. Yes, I want that one.
That's how I see it working. Yeah,
it's the second one in the future, not now.
Yeah, but
never gonna happen. Never gonna happen.
Here's the thing, though, Stephen. For somebody to do that, they'd have to have engineer prompting knowledge. So they can say, find me a marketing job in Houston, Texas, right? But they would have to also put in, find me a marketing job in Houston, Texas, give me the URL, give me the apply, click. They'd have to incorporate all that into the prompt to get to that. So how many people have that sophistication?
Why can't ChatGPT? I don't know why a job seeker would have to know the URL. If you go to a job board, the job seeker doesn't have to know the URL to the job on the ATS. If you go to
Go to
Google for
Google, you
jobs,
don't
it
need to
doesn't.
know the URL. If you go to
Right. Like
Google,
if you go to
Not the
Google and say,
URL. They
find
would
me a
have to put
marketing
in,
job in Austin, Texas, Google is going to take you to Google Jobs and it's going to show you the list and you're going to
right.
click the submit button.
But
it's
if
actually
you
going to take
still
you to
have to put,
Gemini results now.
you
No
would still
longer.
have to put in there that you want to have the apply, you want to have that apply link there. Otherwise, it won't give it to you from like,
Every ATS, guys, keep this in mind. Every ATS did the integration with Indeed for apply with Indeed. What the fuck do you need to leave ChatGPT for? Again, this is what we worry about 2 and 3 and 4 years out. This room, I
Yeah.
think there's bigger things to worry about. This room worries about Workday has apply with Indeed. OpenAI or ChatGPT can see all jobs on Workday. You don't need to leave the app to click apply with Indeed where my
no, I
resume is.
get, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you still, and Alex, back me up if you think I'm right or wrong. But you have to, it's the prompting that gives the results in the AI, right? So if you have a job seeker who isn't sophisticated enough to prompt properly, they're not going to get any kind of results or any kind of good results.
I think that will work. I just tried it now with give me a crypto job in New York, and it gives you results. Like half of them are expired, half of them are not crypto, but it's okay. You can use it. Thing is that you're assuming, I mean, Ethan, you're assuming that Indeed is going to give OpenAI the integrations for free. Why would they do it? They built it for 10 years. They're not crazy. It's like their competitive advantage because the OpenAI operator cannot submit applications for you on an ATS page. And hypothetically, they'll never be able to do it unless they figure out AGI. And then I think we have other problems.
Why not using apply with Indeed? It's 3 lines of code.
Why would Indeed allow it? Like it's their competitive advantage.
Oh, because they're not going to be in job advertising for more than 12 more months. They're opening a PEO. They're a staffing company. They are not in the business you think they are in. Advertising is a means to an end, in my opinion.
So, Alex, you're saying, like Jeff was talking earlier about when he was at Monster, he did not want Monster to give Indeed their 1 million jobs. And 2 months after he left, that's what Monster did. And look where they are now. Alex, what you're saying is Indeed are too smart to hand the keys to the palace to OpenAI.
I mean, first of all, this is the announcement. There's absolutely nothing about them working together. So Indeed buys tokens from OpenAI, and OpenAI and Indeed are going to do this AI program for education. I personally think that the whole OpenAI job board is about something else. We had this webinar. I explained the role of evaluations in AI and how about the next 3 to 5 years is going to be only about evaluations. And this is how the whole Merker marketplace has been built. OpenAI pays them 200 million per year, something like that. They get 500 million from all the top AI labs. I think that this is a huge market to go, and not for OpenAI to make money, but if you are an enterprise and they want to use their agents, they'll need to have your custom evaluations, and they need people to do that. That's where I think things are going.
Yep.
I do have to
that's where they are right now.
What do you mean there?
Those foundation labs are hiring about 12 or 15 major companies that are doing that labeling, doing those evals. That's happening right now. And what I don't know, I listened to a podcast called Lenny's podcast. Has anybody listened to that? Yeah. I'd highly recommend it. It's excellent. And he's had the CEO of Handshake on that just got into it because they have the relationship with the college and the PhDs. and he's had a couple of he had the CEO of Anthropic on, which I was fascinating, and so I would highly recommend that. But this labeling activity, and they had the CEO of Mercor on, I think is a hot area, but it's happening now, and people were saying that maybe that's going to dry up in the next couple of years. But if you think about it, these LLMs are ingesting data, everything that humans know. And so it started out being what's a dog and what's a cat. Very simple labeling. And now it's at the PhD level around chemistry and physics. And then quickly, I think it's going to be everything that you would do searches for that they're going to need people to label. So I think this will happen for the next 3 to 5 years. I'm agreeing with you. And I think that that's a big business. That's Mercor's business.
One of the things that strikes me as being quite odd about Handshake specifically is, its business, core business is basically providing job search software to college and university
The
career service
wealthiest companies
sites.
in the world are willing to spend whatever it takes.
That was weird. The
That was me. I
when
opened.
when they have bachelor's, master's, PhD students working for OpenAI and some of the other ones doing the labeling, it seems to me
Yep.
that what they're doing there is helping to devalue the very candidates that they're supposed to be helping, because they're accelerating OpenAI's move to replace people in a lot of technologies. And I question why the schools aren't pushing back on that. I certainly understand why the accountants at Handshake think this is a good idea and why the shareholders and investors do. But the millions of job seekers that are using them, the 1,000+ schools that are using them, it really seems like it's not in the long-term best interests of the schools or of the job seekers. They're kind of paying people to put themselves out of work. I don't feel as strongly about a Mercor, because that's not its business isn't helping people find jobs. But
Yep.
Handshakes and most of us on the call, they quite literally that is our business. Um, if
Can I
if a
can I can I make a
please,
comment on this?
yeah.
So Handshake has 9 million college students, and then as a result of being in this business for a long time, they have about 9 million people that are alumni, and so they have 18 million active people. And so what they're doing is they're using their relationships, but they're basically activating PhD level scientists that are in their data. They have a weakness because most of those people only have their college email address. So many of the job boards, if you have resumes, you have better contact information probably than Handshake does. So I think this is going to play out in an interesting way where Handshake won't be able to corner the market, because the half of the people that have really learned at the PhD level to be able to contribute to these evals are actually out working. They're out applying what they've learned in colleges. I'm I love this conversation. This could probably be its own conversation, so I don't want to dominate it, but I really like this.
Oh,
You get scientists that's getting paid $90,000 to work somewhere, maybe $140,000, and they're getting $300 an hour to work with a small team to do evals for Perplexity. Right, that's what's happening. These are the kind of gig jobs, side jobs that are going to start to hold up our economy.
Yeah, or accelerate our descent into dystopia, one or the other. The I know we only have few minutes left. If there's anything that we haven't covered that anybody would like to, this would be a good time to hit that topic. All right, so I've another thing that I thought would be good to discuss um, is the trust with job seekers. I think that, and Alex, again, you've done I think, a really great job in doing a lot of writing about the quality of the matching and how LLMs are. Um, I think a lot of people think they're a lot better at matching than they actually are. And if job boards incorporate LLM technology to match up resumes, CVs with jobs, and the results that we return are subpar, maybe even worse than what we do today. What does that do to the candidates who are using our sites? So does anybody have any thoughts on whether LLMs are actually better or will be better than keyword matching, given that I think we would all agree that job postings are horribly written, the vast majority of them, and that
Yep.
resumes and CVs are also horribly written. I have a hard time. I have a hard time separating out sort of the theory that LLMs should be better if the data is good from the reality that the data is almost never good. And maybe it's just wishful thinking on my end.
I've got two things for you. Sorry to
Yeah.
pop back in late for it. Glenn Cathy just put this out on LinkedIn,
Hmm.
where they did a study. It was a university study pushing out saying that LLMs are self-referential. So they tend to like it. So ChatGPT likes it when you use its own model of ChatGPT. Llama likes its own. So what happens is LLMs like the style that they're written in. They don't like each other, but they like this self-referential part. So if I use ChatGPT 4.0 and then somebody else foolishly uses it to track the resumes, it's going to pick itself, which is not a ranking style of actual order. I think so that's something to be thinking about, because there are people out there right now using custom GPTs to rank resumes, and it's not good. The average person shouldn't be doing that. You really have to be good at tracking resumes. The other part is think about how job descriptions are done. I used to go copy them from another job board and give it to a manager. People still do that.
Mhm.
And what happens? So if I'm working with Steven and I quit, you have my resume from 4 years ago, you have my job description from 4 years ago. Your intern posts the job description. When you use an LLM to match that job description, you're matching your resume to an old job. So when a recruiter comes or someone else comes along with a decent ranking system, your resume actually gets booted out because you're 4 years older than you need to be. So there's all kinds of process problems with these. They can be done really well, but our processes aren't fixing, and we're not doing
Who are
ourselves
you
any
calling
favors.
4 years too old to work? Who are you having the nerve to call 4 years old?
Well, like if you have a Kubernetes
I'm
version
teasing
that's
you because we're
different
all
from
so
an
fucking
IT.
old. I'm teasing you because we're all old except for Ben.
Not
If you're
not
looking
not
for
not all of
1.19,
us. I can see on the video that there are some of us who don't have as many wrinkles as others.
Christian's our age. He just looks young.
I use
Yeah.
beef tallow, so I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Can I just share? I'd like
Please.
to share one hack that I think is interesting. We should all understand when the models were trained. So if you're using ChatGPT 4, it was trained in March of 2024. And so any of the information that you're getting out of that model is actually a year and a half old. If if you're using Anthropic, I think it was trained in October of 2024. So if a lot of the models now, if you go in and search something controversial that's happening in the news, what they're doing is they're doing a RAG model where they're actually also searching real time, but they're not going to do that with people data. The people data they have is based on the model of when it was trained. And this is a little of the conversation we were just having about 4-year-old freshness. This is now 1 or 1.5 year old. It's not fresh. And so I think it's something we should all really learn about, because it could be a huge advantage for us when we have updated candidates. Are you following me?
Why is this not fresh? Everything is out there in public. There's been 18 businesses who refresh resumes automatically. I've built them with vibe coding. You can refresh old resumes with current data quite easily.
I got it. What I'm just telling you is the models are actually trained. It's a massive job to train the models, and they're trained on old data. So they get news through a RAG feature where they're actually searching current news, but they don't necessarily do that for people data. So it's that the LLMs are not as good as you would like them to be, or if you feel that it's an advantage, they're not as good as what others will have because of that. And maybe I'm not explaining it in a way that
No,
makes
you
sense, but
knocked it out.
basically,
There's a token limit. They're not going to use the absolute best, fastest model to search the current live internet because it's too expensive for them for some random guy in
that's
Ohio
correct.
to be searching it. So it could be, and
That's correct.
technically, and somebody said they could show it in the demo, but that's not happening for the average person using a free account or a
That's
$20 a month
correct.
account.
Right. So they'll have a an earthquake because they'll actually be searching using not their training model, but they're using a model that overlays on top of that to get new information. So they'll have the earthquake, but they won't have the people, which means that the LLMs generally are not as good for people searches.
The key to that is your own open source. Get your own open source, train it, use it. That's your secret weapon.
Yeah, but
Versus
what are you
just using
training
the
it
model
on?
that updates. Well, I mean, some of
Right.
the new ones, you can just fork some of the DeepSeek stuff or the Llama ones and fine tune it yourself.
I mean, they could buy
Right, but
clay.com for well under $1 billion and be done with the entire conversation. I mean,
right.
money is not an issue. So getting people data does not seem like a burden that they're not going to solve for very quickly if it's a value. Right now, they don't want to share that some of the people data limitations within the Chat GPT or the consumer side of the house is some semblance of PII protection, some semblance of we don't enhance people data, but you bet your ass their API does. You use Firecrawl plus OpenAI, you're done. I have your updated resume to yesterday, man.
So
Yeah.
before we close, another thought that has come to mind that when we keep talking about Indeed and OpenAI, and I think some of that is just like the two elephants in the room, and people question about whether, why would Indeed give the keys to its kingdom? And Ethan, your comment just now about money is what prompts me to think this. So it just in the last few weeks, right? NVIDIA and OpenAI did what was it, $100 billion deal, $10 billion a year. And it's kind of this circular, which is very scary kind of a deal. NVIDIA sells the chips and OpenAI agrees to you. I mean, it's like we're building this massive house of cards in the tech industry. And if any one of those cards is pulled out, then a lot is going to come crashing down. That's a bit of another story for another day. But what's to stop OpenAI from writing Indeed/Recruit a check for $2 billion? Right? Very quickly, Recruit says, oh, okay, sure, we'll give you access. You give us $2 billion? Like, which of us in this room, that is given, more revenue than it would generate in years would say no to that customer just like that, especially when your compensation is tied very much to quarterly performances. So I would just urge people to kind of think a little bit out of the box about that unthinkable, kind of thing. If we're focused on where we're going to be in 3 to 6 months, I don't think it's that big a deal. If we're thinking about where we're going to be 3 to 5 years from now, then I think those unthinkable things become much more important. So I think a lot of this discussion is short term, long term, also. Well, we've reached the top of the hour. This has been
Stephen, in
awesome.
other words, make as
Yeah.
much money as you can in the next 2 years, job board folks. Make as much money now because we're talking about short term and long term.
And is that any different than it was in 2005 or 2015? Right. It's
Or last Monday.
I think that Louise, you're going to have a very lively conversation on your hands in a week from today.
Yeah, I think you're right. I'm looking forward to it. This is a good test run. So
thank you, everybody. See you.
I really wanted to be there, but I told you I was doing RecFest. So.
Yeah, so I'll be at RecFest. We have a couple people at Job Boards Connect. We're dividing the baby. Thank you, everybody. See you a
Thanks,
month
everyone.
from today, same time, second Thursday of the month. Cheers, all.
Thanks, Stephen. Take care.